Alright, hello class. The main assignment that you definitely need to get done today is the cell notes and worksheet here. So you'll see the worksheet is linked right here. Right here you're going to add some definitions that I'm going to go through in the slides. Here we're going to go through each of the organelles. And you are going to add the function or definition for each of these organelles, and then right here make sure you include, is this organelle found in plant cells, animal cells, or both plant and animal cells. So don't forget about this column right here. At the bottom, here's kind of the fun part. We are going to color in each of these organelles, and so we've got a key right here. So you're going to say, I colored the cell wall this color, and then actually color in the cell wall that color. So I recommend doing this on paper, but if you can do that on your computer, you're more than welcome to. I do want to say this is the plant cell, just to be clear, and this is the animal cell. So here are the slides. I'm going to go ahead and start on these slides, and I will cut this into 2 videos. So I'm going to go through the definitions first in this video, and then in the next video I will get into the different organelles and how to color them. So intro to cells. Our next unit that we're going to be focusing on for the next few classes is cells. So we first need to define, what is a cell? Well, if you think back to the beginning of the year, you'll remember that cells were one of the 7 characteristics of life. So if something is alive, it has to have cells. And that's because a cell is the basic unit of structure and function in all living things. So if you think of a brick house, right, it's made up of lots of bricks put together. And that's kind of what we are, except we're just made of a lot of cells put together. With cells, we have cell theory right here, and there's 3 important points to cell theory. You will need to know these 3, so do make sure you know and understand these 3 points to cell theory. The first one is that all living things are composed of cells. So that's easy because we already knew that from our characteristics of life at the beginning of the year. If it has cells, it is alive. If it does not have cells, it is not alive. Our second point is that cells are the basic units of structure and function in all living things. If you break down a living thing to its smallest parts, you're going to break it down to its cells. So it's sort of like Lego pieces, where we are a bunch of cells all put together. And then finally, number 3, all cells are produced from other cells. We can't go to a lab and just decide we're going to make a cell today. We have to have a cell to start with, and then if we want more cells, we can split those cells and make more from that, but we have to have a cell to start with. We can't just make a cell from nothing because we don't have that ability. All right, here's where we start writing things down on your worksheet. So you're going to need to include the definition of prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells. These are the first things you need to write down on your sheet. So a prokaryotic cell is a cell that does not have a nucleus. So we should be fairly familiar with what a nucleus is. We've been talking about that vocabulary word a little bit when we talked about atoms, but usually with a nucleus we think of it being in the center of the cell. That's not always the case, but it's that little ball that kind of holds a lot of information, and it holds the DNA, so it's very important. But not all cells have a nucleus. So the definition of a prokaryotic cell is a cell that does not have a nucleus. Now, because there's no nucleus to hold all the DNA and keep it protected, these cells tend to be very small and simple. For example, bacteria are prokaryotic cells. Now, everything else is going to be a eukaryotic cell. So eukaryotic cells, the basic definition that you need to write down is that they do have a nucleus. So eukaryotic cells have a nucleus, and you can kind of see in this picture right here, this is an animal, these are 2 animal cells, and these little dots, these are the nuclei, the nucleuses. And here we have some plant cells, And all these little dots are the nucleus in each of these cells. So because there's a nucleus to hold and protect all the DNA, they can be larger and more complex than prokaryotic cells. So this is going to be all animals, plants, protists, fungi, but pretty much everything else except bacteria is going to be eukaryotic. And you can remember this by knowing that you are eukaryotic. So you are eukaryotic. Humans have eukaryotic cells, so do plants, animals, and everything else except for bacteria, basically. So those are our main two types of cells. We have eukaryotic with a nucleus, and we have back here prokaryotic without a nucleus. Now we need to talk about organelles before we get started with defining each one of them. So if you think about your body, you have a lot of organs in your body, and each of those organs does a specific job. So just like we as humans have organs, cells have organelles. They have these tiny structures inside them that carry out specific functions within a cell. All right, so our next few slides, I'm going to cut off this video, and our next few slides we will go through each of those organelles, we will define their functions, what cells we find them in, and we will color them in.